Okay, let's turn our attention now over to Bellator. Bellator 291, Amosov versus Storley 2, going down at the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland on February 25th. Here we go. Before we're going to look at 3 fights, I believe, for this event. 3 or just 2? No, 3 fights.
For Bellator, we're going to look at 2 fights.
2 fights, my bad. Any other fights or fighters you guys want to spotlight?
I got a couple.
Are there 19? Are there 19 fights on this card?
Yeah, it's insane.
I know, it's a doozy.
But you know what? You know what?
This almost like a smoker,
dude. This happens with Bellator sometimes. They list cards, and then like 2 or 3 of the fights never happen. First of all, they do post limbs a lot, which is why there's so many fights, because like it will go off the air, and then they'll do 3, 4 more fights. But also, like 2 or 3 just won't happen. So I don't. It's very confusing.
Post limb sound like a
when you
terrible
do that
idea,
many
personally.
fights. I mean, dude, this weekend I'm about to do 21 or 22 fights.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Holy shit!
It almost feels like a regional card because they book so many fights to get, basically to sell more tickets.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a lot. Omar, did you have any that you wanted to say anything about, or should I go?
No, you can go.
Okay. So this one is in Dublin. The headliners are not anything to do with Dublin, but beyond that, there's a lot of Irish dudes on this card. They always do put on fun cards over there. So just some names of note that are on these prelims. You have Peter Queally, who has had awesome receptions and walkouts in Dublin, but unfortunately really bad results. So they matched him up with Bryce Logan, who hasn't won a fight in a minute, to try to make sure he finally gets one over there. So hopefully he will. You have Sinead Kavanagh in a fight against Janae Harding, who they'll be behind. Kieran Clark, who's been a very good prospect out of Ireland. He's fighting again. Unfortunately, his opponent fell out, so he's fighting a late replacement now in Leonardo Sinise. Carl Moore, who returned after a while out and beat Carl Albrechtsen in his last fight, which was a pretty big upset. He's on the card against Masij Rozansky. And then one other of note, this one is a weird one because they usually kind of like to try to have the Irish dudes winning over there. They took Richie Smullen and put him in there with Piotr Nidzielski. I forget exactly how you pronounce his last name, Nidzielski. But he is really fucking good. He's only fought one time in Bellator so far, but he debuted by beating Pedro Carvalho, who's in the co-main on this card, who we're going to talk about. So he's a name to watch for sure. I expect him to work Richie Smullen. But yeah, there's some quality fights on that undercard, at least in terms of entertainment.
For sure. Let us first talk about the co-main event in the featherweight division. Pedro Carvalho taking on Jeremy Kennedy. Carvalho, the game, 27-year-old out of Portugal, 13-6 as a pro, 6 wins by submission, coming off of a win over Mads Burnell back in September of 2022. His opponent, Jeremy JBC Kennedy, the 30-year-old out of Canada, 18-3 as a pro, 1 no contest, 7 knockouts, back-to-back wins over Emmanuel Sanchez and Aaron Pico. Omar, let me toss it over to you first. Give us your take and your pick, Carvalho versus Kennedy.
Yeah, so it's a good fight. The Jeremy Kennedy win against Aaron Pico was based off of the shoulder injury, so
Sure.
Not really much to take off of that. But good win against Emmanuel Sanchez. The Pedro Carvalho is also a tough gamer. That dude definitely comes to scrap regardless of where the fight goes. He's not the greatest finisher in the world. Like he's not consistently looking for a finish, I would say. But he is consistently trying to make sure that he's winning the fight, that he's staying on the outside, that he's trying to do his best to control the fight where it needs to be. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Jeremy Kennedy. I think Jeremy Kennedy's forward pressure might just be a little too much to be comfortable playing his own game. I think when it comes down to it, I think there'll be more acceptance of the bad positions from Carvalho than there will be from Kennedy. So I'm going to go Jeremy Kennedy by decision.
Okay, Mark?
So Kennedy's favored here. He's minus 210. Carvalho is plus 170. This is a really good fight. It's closely matched, maybe even closer than that in my mind. It's got bad blood. They do not like each other at all. They've been trying to fight each other, so that's always fun. We know what Jeremy Kennedy is going to be looking to do. The man is a wrestler day in and day out, and a damn good one. But Pedro's an interesting test because he's got pretty good takedown defense, but more than that, he's very good at getting up and at separating himself. Like, he's one of those guys that honestly, like, looks like he's mad when people are holding him. Like, he's like, get the fuck off me. He really shucks people away from him. He's a tough guy to hold on to. And he's dangerous from range. And as much as Kennedy can make his striking function for him at times, he's probably going to be outgunned in that department. So I don't know. There's definitely aspects to it that make me want to go with Carvalho as the dog, but I don't know that he has fought a wrestler on the level of a Jeremy Kennedy. He has looked very good lately. I mean, again, the Pico one was a nothing fight. I'm not counting that. But prior to that, he was looking pretty damn good. He was really impressive against Sanchez. Carvalho's going to have the Irish crowd behind him. He trains over there. They love him over there. But I'm going to lean Jeremy Kennedy, I think, to win a decision in a competitive fight.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a super competitive fight. Echoing what you said, yeah, I love to see a fight where there's a little bit of bad blood. There's definitely going to be some fireworks in there. Ultimately, for me, what tips the scales is I'm going to go with the guy with the bigger power. I think Kennedy's going to land the bigger shots, and I will take Kennedy by unanimous decision victory across the fight.
Yeah, I see a lot of Kennedy taking him down. A lot of Carvalho trying to get back up, and eventually I feel like after a certain amount of time it's going to be real difficult for Carvalho to continue to get back up the way that he does, because he does have very good hips, but he also does get caught against the cage a lot, and I think Kennedy is somebody who can take advantage of those situations.
For sure. Okay, main event time. Bellator welterweight world championship fight unification bout between the current champ Yaroslav Amosov and the current Bellator interim champion Logan Storley. That is our main event. They have fought before. This is a rematch. They previously fought at Bellator 252. Amosov won by split decision. So Yaroslav, the Dynamo, out of Kiev, Ukraine, the 29-year-old, 26-0, 9 knockouts, 10 submissions, 7 decision wins. He is also, what is it? I believe 6-0. No, wait. 7-0 in Bellator, coming off of a win against Douglas Lima. Logan Storley, the Storm, 30-year-old out of Webster, South Dakota, 14-1 as a pro, 8 knockouts, 6 decision victories, riding a 3-fight win streak after his first career loss against Yaroslav Amosov. But since then, he's notched 3 more wins, most recently defeating Michael Venom Page by split decision back in May. Mark, take this one first. What's your take and your pick?
All right, I love this fight. I love to see Amosov back. Obviously, he has been missing for a bit as he went and fought for his country. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video of him unearthing his title from his mom's bombed home and dusting it off and making sure that it was okay. I'm not sure if that was staged or not, but a cool video either way, and obviously props to him for going and fighting for his country. But I'm happy to see him back and to give us the chance of seeing these titles unified. And it is a super high-level fight. If you take out the one time these guys have fought each other from their record, they combined have fought 39 fights and never lost a fight. So they are some quality fighters. The only loss on anyone's record is the loss on Storley's, which was a split decision loss to Yaroslav Amosov. So it's a good one here. Did I say the odds? Amosov is minus 170. Storley is plus 140. So they are pretty close as well. Amosov's a bit bigger. He's got a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. The first fight, if I remember right, I did think Amosov won. I remember specifically though, that Storley won round 3. I think the debate may have been round 2, but I thought Amosov got it. But My point I'm making about round 3 is that Storley is a dude who will go for days. Sometimes he looks tired, but he just pushes. Like it's visually, but it's not actually. Or at least it doesn't affect his performance. Amosov sometimes will look like he starts to slow a little bit later in fights. Obviously, he's never lost a fight, so it hasn't been a huge problem. But I do think Storley having 5 rounds to work with makes this really interesting because I could see a world where 4 and 5 go his way, and if he got one of the first ones, he could get the cards, that type of thing, because he does not stop. The Amosov is definitely the much better all-around fighter. He's a better striker. Storley can strike because he has the threat of the wrestling, so he makes it work for him. He's willing to kind of throw some big shots, so he'll clip guys from time to time. But Amosov is the one with the technique on his side. He's the more dangerous, more varied striker. And then the grappling is going to be where this gets real interesting because obviously Storley is a great wrestler. He's a dogged wrestler. But Amosov can wrestle himself. He can scramble. He's got great get-ups. He's got a sub-game that you got to watch out for. So it's a really interesting style clash. Storley's going to be relentless in there. I'm sure he's going to get him down at times. I think it just becomes a question of how often and how much he is able to work down there without Amosov getting up or defending with, sub attempts and things like that to create separation. But I keep coming back to the fact that I don't feel like we have seen Logan Storley get a win against a true high-level, well-rounded fighter. Like, on this whole come-up of his, he's fought a lot of guys with flaws. Like MVP, of course, he was able to hold him down, wrestle him. Neiman Gracie, he was able to kind of lean on the striking because Gracie didn't quite have that. Not like Storley has that in spades, but he was the more aggressive fighter. He could lean that way. Before that, it's a lot of lesser dudes. Even before that, it was Joaquin Buckley, who, again, he was able to wrestle. So I don't feel like he has beaten a high-level, well-rounded fighter. And until I see him do that, I don't feel like I can pick him to beat a Yaroslav Amosov. So as much as I could see this being close, I will go Amosov to win a UD.
Omar, it's your turn.
I agree with a lot of what Mark said. I think the one thing that I'll add is Amosov, I think, is one of those guys that is much sharper when it comes to the striking and the technique, even the ground game as well. Storley, though, is a workhorse. And so there's a lot of opportunity for him to potentially steal rounds, like Mark said, even take the last 2 rounds and make the first 3 rounds even more important potentially for the overall results of the fight. I do think this fight ends up being a war, but I also think it still ends up being a split decision. I don't think a lot changes from, like, for example, how we were talking about people kind of adjusting to having fought somebody the first time, and I don't think this happens in this fight. I think this kind of still ends up being a back and forth war with Storley trying to outwork and try to bulldoze Amosov, and Amosov having to be more precise, quicker, taking advantage of those technical abilities that he has to kind of counter the forward pressure and sort of the grittiness that Storley ends up bringing. So I'm going to go with Amosov here. I do think the technical side of things should play out in his favor over at least 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Amosov by split decision.
I like the split call.
Well, we are unanimous on this one. I'm also going to go with Amosov. I think it's just the responsible pick here. I mean, the guy's fucking 26-0. Jesus. And I think he has a more complete skill set. I think Storley's going to he's going to try to make it a scrap, which is why I'm going to take Amosov by unanimous decision. Amosov's got a lot of skills, man. He's fucking good.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is.